We are less than 2 days away from the start of Buffalo Bills training camp. We are going to go over sleepers in training camp, some of the biggest storylines on the defensive side of training camp, and so much more. Let's go!
To my friend Nate and all the listeners of this podcast, no one circles the wagons than Nate Escape. Circle the wagons, Buffalo.
Where else would you rather be than right here, right now?
Hey, let's go Buffalo! Hey, let's go Buffalo!
The Bills make me wanna.
What is up, Bills Mafia? Welcome to another episode of Circling the Wagons, a Buffalo fan base podcast. I am your host, Nate, guys. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode where we're going to talk about the Buffalo Bills training camp 2025, the defensive side of the ball. If you heard us last week, we talked all about the offense, all the way from quarterback down to offensive line and tight end, wide receiver, running back. We went through it all. Guys that we thought are on the roster bubble, guys that we thought might make it or might not make it, depending on where you stood on it, and a lot more. So we're going to go over the defense tonight. We're going to talk about the biggest training camp battles and a few sleepers, either on the offensive or defensive side of the ball, that John and I think that we're going to be watching for. I think you guys should be too. So I'd like to welcome my co-host this episode, John, to the podcast. John, what's going on, brother? How are you?
What's going on, Nate?
I'm feeling tremendous. I can't believe it's 2 days away. I live in the general area of Rochester, so I saw some signs up in Pittsford saying, home of the Buffalo Bills and stuff like that. That was pretty cool. See people walking down near the Erie Canal with like Bills stuff on. And sometimes it looks like official Bills stuff. I'm like, is that a coach just going for a walk? Maybe a positional coach, not like Sean McDermott, but like, one of the assistant coaches I don't know that well by face. Like that might be Aaron Cromer taking a walk down Main Street, Pittsford or something like that. So it's a pretty cool time of year, seeing a lot more people out and about wearing Bills stuff. I'm excited, man. I can't believe it's already here. Players are moving in. And I mean, this will be our 8th year doing the podcast, and pretty crazy that it's come to this point, but it's an exciting journey, man. I'm glad to be doing this with you. So let's get right into it. All right, John. So we'll start with the edge. That's just what I have first on the Buffalo Bills roster tracker spreadsheet. By the way, if you guys want to, we're doing this live, right? So if you want to chime in at any point, give us your take, let us know your thoughts. We can react to it, or you can agree or disagree with whatever we're saying, and let us know, because this is the time we're hosting live. So let's start with the edge. And John, we have some news about one of the Bills' defensive ends this week, didn't we?
Yes, Nate, we did.
Defensive end Landon Jackson, the rookie out of Arkansas, landing on the PUP, the physically unable to perform list, heading into training camp. So John, I hear that and not super psyched about that. I think it's just the way that the Bills' seasons have gone the last few, and injuries being such a big part of it. Well, one of the main storylines I'd say throughout the season, especially heading into the playoffs. So when you hear the Joey Bosa news during mandatory minicamp, when you hear this news, like it just kind of puts I don't know. You know what I mean? It's a nice little speed bump that I didn't really want to deal with, because really there's usually no good news in the offseason. We don't know when he's going to come back. He could last the entire training camp in the PUP. The Buffalo Bills don't seem to think so. Or it could be one of those things where they are waiting a few weeks, waiting for him to settle down. We don't even know what the injury is. What were your thoughts on this? Because it was kind of a buzzkill for me, but what about you?
Yeah, it was for me too. It's very mysterious. We don't know what the injury was. We saw some reports that it's a precautionary thing, but what does that mean? Why would they put him on PUP if it's just like, oh, no, he'd be ready for camp anyway? Doesn't make sense. So yeah, it's disappointing. And then you have Michael Hoyt, who's suspended for 6 games.
Joby, on the defensive line.
Yeah, right. So yeah, the different things affecting Bosa. We heard the Bosa report, like you said. So, Bosa's questionable, Landon Jackson's questionable, and Hoyt's suspended for 6 games. Those are all edge guys. Not great. And they've been trying to address pass rush for ever. It's the perfect storm of not good things. So we just have to cross our fingers. I don't know.
John, if you had to guess When, by the way, Justin from the Wandering Buffalo podcast, he just texted me, he saw we were live, and he said McDermott was at the restaurant I work at tonight. So that's pretty cool. Shout out to Justin from the Wandering Buffalo on the Buffalo Fan Base Podcast Network. John, what was the best defensive end group that the Bills have had under Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane? Because I could argue that this is one of the weakest positions that they've had in their tenure. They just haven't seemed to get like a good. I would say before Von Miller got injured and when Leonard Floyd was here, I think that was our best defensive end starting. And then Greg Rousseau was rotating in with Leonard Floyd.
Sure, the beginning of that season before Von Miller got hurt, that was fantastic. And they had been trying just before then to put together a pass rush, and they've put a lot of draft capital and money towards free agents to address this issue, and
no luck.
It hasn't been successful. The Miller thing, I can't blame him for because he was good before he got injured, but everything else, the Boogie Bashams and it's tough.
Yeah, there's been a lot of players that have come and gone through free agency. I mean, the defensive tackle group has been somewhat similar, except that they've kind of hit on Ed Oliver. I think they mostly hit on him. Daquan Jones was good for a while. He's still kind of questionable at this age. They just haven't been able to put it together fully. And I don't know if they really truly have since Bruce Smith. Who else? Phil Hansen was on there.
Yeah, it was a 3-4. So they had like Jeff Wright. And then
Bryce Pauper.
Yeah, Leah Seals was defensive end. Yeah, they different players. Yeah, I mean, when you utter the name Bruce Smith, like nobody's gonna compare to like it doesn't matter who was on the line with him.
Yeah, there's
I mean, like maybe like the Aaron Schobel years. Aaron Schobel's really good.
Aaron Schobel and Chris Kelsey were a decent duo.
I have my reservations with Kelsey, and I think I preferred Ryan Denny.
You loved Ryan Denny. But now this is a deep cut. If you're listening or watching, the Denny Kelsey discussion from the early 2000s. John was banging on the drum for Ryan Denny.
Schobel is great. Like he said Brady more than any other person. I think that still stands.
At least on the Buffalo Bills.
No, I think. Well, I mean, they played him twice a year, but I think that still stands. But no, like. Yeah, they've been trying to do that. Like, look at the Eagles, like that pass rush against Mahomes in the Super. Like, that's what they're trying to. They've been trying to do that. They're like, they just haven't quite gotten there.
Every team's trying to do what the Eagles can do when you get pressure with just 4 and you stop Patrick Mahomes completely.
Yeah. Trying to do it for the last 7 years, and they haven't been successful.
Literally,
the Eagles, they've been trying to do it.
Seriously, no luck.
That's why they're spending all this draft capital like every single year. Like they got, and even this, like they got a second, third, fourth round picks all on the defensive line, and then 2 free agents, Hoyt and 3 free agents, Bosa, Ogunjobi, and Hoyt. So 3 free agents and 3 rookies within the first 4 rounds, all on the defensive line. They're still trying to do it. So hopefully, all you really realistically need is one to hit. And then the rest of them to be complementary, right? So
just one.
You got to roll the dice, get one of them a hit, and the rest of them will elevate. I like what they've done with the draft. I like both the Bosa pick. He's got to stay healthy. The same thing with Von Miller. It's like it's a risk. It was a Jordan Poyer risk when they brought in Jordan Poyer. He had been hurt in his career. They brought him in, and he managed to stay healthy and. It was a great thing for them. Like, it's kind of like one of those situations.
Yeah, I mean, just going through the list of all the different position groups, like, I mean, I see from left to right, and we just talked about edge of defensive tackle, but linebacker they've hit on through the draft, and cornerback they've hit on through the draft, nickel, safety they've hit on through the draft or free agency. All those other positions, tackle, guard, on the offensive side, wide receiver, running back. Tight end they kind of hit on. Nothing crazy, but I mean, you could argue that they've done a pretty good job, decent to above average in almost every other positional group. Just edge, I love Greg Rousseau, but I mean, he's just not that like stud pass rusher that you need to account for every single.
He's a complimentary guy on the other side.
Exactly. You get a Von Miller on the side, peak Von Miller, and Greg Rousseau is going to eat up on the other side, right? So I think that was probably Von Miller. Greg Rousseau's best season. Is Von Miller's healthy season in 2021? 2021, whatever that was. So anyway, I know we're going down a rabbit hole. Let's start off. We have Greg Rousseau, which you just mentioned. Joey Bosa, hopefully he's comes back pretty healthy going into training camp in a day or two. AJ Epinesa, Landon Jackson. We just mentioned the injury with Landon Jackson. Jevon, Solomon, and Michael Hoyt. Also below the line, which is kind of like the line where I have the 53-man roster projection right now. I have Hayden Harris and Paris Sean. Any thoughts on any of these positions? I guess just to start off, it's pretty much going to be Greg Rousseau starting. And then I feel like Joey Bosa is going to be rotating in on passing downs, and he'll be rotating on his side with either AJ Epinesa, Landon Jackson, Jevon Solomon, Michael Hoyt. I mean, those three. That's kind of how I see this group lining up. What about you?
I agree. So it's going to start. Bosa's going to do the Von Miller role, I guess. And then it's going to be rotating Epidesa to Jackson and Hoyt and Solomon. Solomon's good too. Same thing.
I mean, to start training camp, it's going to be really interesting to see who is starting opposite of Greg Rousseau, or who is the next one to go in for him, or start opposite of him. Whether it's, I imagine it's going to be Joey Bosa a lot to begin with, but who's next? Is it AJ Epinesa then stepping in for Joey Bosa? Is it Landon Jackson? One of my sleepers comes from this group, and it's Jevon Solomon. I mean, I liked the idea of Jevon Solomon coming out of Troy. I mean, it was just his size. He was more of an outside linebacker, so he was smaller in stature. He still is, but that was a guy who led the FBS in sacks. So, 2023, I'm interested to see. He's my sleeper pick as someone I could see potentially, probably not starting off, but maybe fighting AJ Epinesa if Landon Jackson stays injured. I'm going to be really interested to see what happens with him. Does he become a completely nameless player on the roster, or does he take that step up and complement, the Bills' offensive line? Who knows? Maybe Jevon Solomon comes in on pass rushing downs at times instead of Joey Bosa to start the season, or maybe he just ends up being a depth piece, or maybe he's inactive. But he's one of my sleeper picks. So, John, do you have a sleeper pick in this group? I know I just gave mine. I'm going to do mine as I go through there's only one other one. So as a positional group, do you have one? Is yours Jevon Solomon?
No, I wasn't thinking defensive line, but I think that makes a lot of sense, especially with we're not sure about the Landon Jackson pup injury thing, and then Mike Hoyt's suspended for 6 games, and then Bosa had some sort of injury in May or something. So, and Epidesa is more of a set the edge, run stopper kind of guy. So Solomon could certainly see a lot of playing time early on, and he's impressed in the past. So, yeah, I think that's a good pick for that. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. Jeez. He's one of those guys where, I don't expect a lot from him. I don't believe we saw any real hype from him in the training camp of 2024, but this is a guy that has a ton of potential. He's a later round pick. The traits are there, just like in a smaller school, just really undersized. There's things going against him, but it doesn't mean that there's not a role for him in this defense if the Bills can use him properly. Unfortunately, John, the Bills haven't really developed any defensive linemen just like heads and shoulders above where they were from a previous season. Unlike the offensive line, where you have Aaron Kromer, one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL, taking Spencer Brown from almost getting cut in year 2 to becoming an extension after year 3 and being one of the best right tackles in the NFL, right? The Bills don't have that in the defensive line. At least they haven't proved that they can coach up those guys in the defensive line that much better.
No, but there is a path for Solomon getting snaps because of suspensions and injuries. So if he presses and does well, and it happens early in the season.
Yeah, I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be interested to see, especially, I mean, really, they have one. If Joey Bosa is still injured for whatever reason, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 guys. They're definitely making the roster that can play at defensive end. So obviously Hayden Harris and Paris Sean, but those guys aren't going to be lining up with the number 1 or 2 teams probably. So yeah, it'll be interesting. John, defensive line, we're moving over to the defensive tackle. Are there any surprises here when you look at it, or anything that you can see as far as, some guy getting a few more snaps, or a guy that you're going to be watching for in this group. I think I know where he stands right now, but he could move up or down depending on how camp goes.
This is definitely another very interesting group. I mean, we got Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones starting. Daquan Jones is getting older. TJ Sanders just signed. That's encouraging. I'm curious if Dwayne Carter is going to make an improvement this year. He's going to compete, right? And then I think the most interesting person for me is again Walker, the 4th-round pick. Big guy. I think he's kind of more raw, so he's going to need a little bit more work. But he's the most interesting to me of the depth players. They have a lot of depth at both all over the defensive line, and I think that's on purpose. They're trying to hit on somebody.
Throwing darts at a board, hoping they hit a bullseye, right?
They got like 2nd-round pick on TJ Sanders, 3rd-round pick on Landon Jackson, 4th-round pick on Deanne Walker. Joey Bosa is a free agent. Larry Ogunjobi is a free agent. Michael Hoyt's a free agent. Like they're trying.
Yeah, absolutely. So the starters, like you mentioned, Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, the TJ Sanders. I'm glad you mentioned him just signing, because I forgot that was actually a big deal. Him being a 2nd-round pick and the only player that wasn't signed. The way I see it right now is Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones starters. TJ Sanders comes in for Daquan Jones on obvious passing downs. TJ Sanders is a pass rushing specialist at defensive tackle. He's one of the best in college football at that. Dwayne Carter is my second sleeper, because I actually shared the interview that he did with Mookie Hawkins and Justice Radford of the Buffalo Fan Base podcast. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. It was a really good interview they had with him at MafiaCon. And, Dwayne Carter mentioned, getting together with Daquan Jones. Like he's one of those guys that's kind of like a big brother to him. He would have guys over, ask them what they were doing, especially rookies, newer guys. They might not know the area as well. They might not have a lot of friends or a lot of people that they know outside of the Buffalo Bills organization. So he'd invite them over. And Dwayne mentioned how much better he's gotten. I thought he showed flashes last season while he did get some spot work. Another injury for the Buffalo Bills. That's what he dealt with the second half of the season. I'm going to be really interested to see if he can step up, because right now, John, it's between him and Deanne Walker as the Daquan Jones replacement for 2026 next season. Who's going to replace him? Dwayne Carter has the leg up because he's been with the Buffalo Bills. He doesn't really have the size like Deanne Walker does. He's a much smaller guy. He's probably much closer to TJ Sanders in size. They've talked about him after the draft when the Bills drafted TJ Sanders. They said, well, where does that leave Dwayne Carter? Dwayne Carter could play one technique also. So that big run-stuffing defensive tackle next to Ed Oliver, maybe that's Dwayne Carter. Maybe he puts on, I think they said he could put on 10 to 15 more pounds, or TJ Sanders could put on 10 to 15 more pounds. It'll be interesting to see how this whole defensive line pans out. Who's going to be the second defensive tackle behind Daquan Jones? Somebody could potentially, I mentioned 2026, somebody could overtake him this season. I mean, I think Daquan Jones is good, but he's not completely unbeatable on the roster at his age. I think that there's a chance that if Deanne Walker comes on strong, I know he's more of a 3-tech. He's just like in a 1-tech's body. He's still a really good pass rusher. Again, Deanne Walker worried about injuries. He's dealing with a back injury all of last season, and we all know back injuries go away immediately, right? Like those don't linger or anything. I'm really interested in this group, but Dwayne Carter right now is my sleeper on the defensive line. I think there's a chance that he could be one of those guys where like, oh wow, like he's the second team defensive tackle behind Daquan Jones, and then all of a sudden Daquan Jones takes a day off, and then we get to see a veteran rest, right? He's older, veteran rest day. Maybe Dwayne Carter gets those ET1 reps. How does he react to those? Does he make any flash plays? Does the media talk about him? I could see him being one of those players, and I'm rooting for him. He seems like a good dude. All right, John, let's go to the linebacking group. This one's a little bit more straightforward, but I think there's potential movement within this group. What are your thoughts on the linebacking group? Are there any storylines or anything within this group that catch your eye?
I think I'm just worried about Milano and him losing a step after his series of injuries, because it's gonna be Bernard and Milano. I like Andreessen, I like Dorian Williams, but I just kind of back of my mind kind of thing. They don't need to be like all pro at every position, but not concerned that Milano will be back to form.
John, pop quiz. Matt Milano, how old is he, or how old will he be at the beginning of the season?
I don't know.
31. He's going to be 31 years old at the beginning of the season, which is crazy. It
Wow.
feels like they just drafted him.
It doesn't feel like it's been probably because he missed so much time. You just negated the fact that
We haven't seen him,
yeah.
but when he's on the field, John, it's like his impact is very.
And Bernard's like what, 23, 24?
Go on.
He's on the other position, but
26. It's not even.
I'm still waiting. No, I mean they got Williams and Andreessen in there. I'm not too worried because they play a lot of nickel anyway. Whatever. I'm happy with the linebackers right now. I think I was like before the season started, I was more concerned about safety and corner, and I might still be. It really depends on how some of these other players play out, especially safety.
Why were you going to say you're worried about linebacker also, or just you're not as worried about that as you are safety and corner?
I'm more worried about the defensive line and defensive backs. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say easily, I think defensive end is my biggest concern. And then safety.
Yes. Defensive end and safety are my top two. And then we're kind of banking on corner that Maxwell Harrison is going to be a banger, right?
Yeah. I mean,
that would be number 3 because we haven't seen him play an NFL snap yet. But
yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Let me give my thoughts real quick on linebacker before we move to corner. Matt Milano, when he's healthy, I think still at age 31, he was showing flashes last year. And I like Dorian Williams a lot. I liked him since they drafted linebacker Dorian Williams. I liked him when he stepped up for Matt Milano last season. I thought he looked pretty good in that role. But when Matt Milano came back, it was noticeable, not because of how bad Dorian Williams played before him, because he didn't play bad, but just how good Matt Milano is when he's healthy. I think, but that's the key phrase, right? When he's healthy, because you can be an all pro, but if you never get a chance to play, then what good is that, right? So, I mean, I love Matt Milano. I've always loved Matt Milano. And it's not just because Bills Mafia thinks he's dreamy, although that doesn't hurt his case. He's a really good linebacker. I'd say he's easily, in my opinion, since I've been watching the Buffalo Bills play football as a little kid in the 90s, the best linebacker I've seen the Bills have. And that includes and I loved Cornelius Bennett. I loved Daryl Talley. Those guys were fun to watch. But Matt Milano, just
well, that's a statement right there.
I love watching Matt Milano play. He's just so freaking good at that position. And then that's what I like about Terrell Bernard, right? There was a big difference between Tremaine Edmonds starting here for 4 or 5 years or whatever, and then Terrell Bernard getting his chance. There's a noticeable difference in the plays that they make, in the way that they're always around the ball. So yeah, Matt Milano is probably my favorite linebacker ever to play for the Buffalo Bills. But I know as a kid, you're like Cornelius Bennett, Daryl Talley, those guys were really good. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I just love watching Matt Milano play. He's one of my favorite Buffalo Bills. Oh, and then going back to the other things, obviously Terrell Bernard, love Terrell Bernard. Dorian Williams, I like when they get Dorian Williams on the field for their 3 linebacker set. I think that is something they need to use much more often this season. I think that's going to be one, because you need to get Dorian Williams more reps. If he is going, Matt Milano did take that pay cut, or I'm sorry, took 1 year off his contract before the season. So Matt Milano is a free agent right now after the 2025 season. And who's going to step up for him? Is it a guy that they haven't drafted yet, or a guy that they haven't signed yet in free agency next season? Or is it Dorian Williams, a guy who's backed him up and played for him when Matt Milano has been injured? So get Dorian Williams in there on 3 linebacker sets, get him more reps, and go from there. But, I mean, Joe Andreessen, he went from being this homegrown UB Buffalo kid to most likely making this roster and making it out over Balin Spector. I love that story. He flashed in minicamp. We'll see what he can do at training camp, so I'll be watching Joe Andreessen there.
Yeah, it's tough to play more 3 linebacker sets when you have a nickelback like Taron Johnson.
Agreed. It's one of those things where they did it against Derrick Henry in the playoffs, and I thought that worked really well. But to your point, if there's any chance it's going to be passing, and I think Dorian Williams is halfway decent in pass coverage. I don't think he's good as Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard, but he's pretty good. He is not Taron Johnson, though, right? If you think it might be a pass whatsoever, you got to take Dorian Williams out and put in.
And even Cam Lewis, if Taron Johnson's hurt, Cam Lewis can play that position. He can play multiple positions in the backfield there. Safety, you can play.
Buddy, you're jumping the gun. I haven't gotten to nickel corner yet.
All right, we're talking
Please.
linebacker. Well, it's all related, right? Like, we're talking schemes and
So now let's
We'll
move
take
on to quarterback. I take it. Christian Benford. By the way, John, I don't know how many linebackers they keep. I could see a world where they only keep 4 linebackers if they're all healthy, and
Yeah.
then keep like a 10th offensive lineman or something. You know what I mean? Because I don't think the difference between Balin Spector and Edifon Oshio or Shaq Thompson, unless Shaq Thompson, all of a sudden found the fountain of youth. I think that's one of those positions where they only play 2 of them, like we said, and I could see them just keeping 4 of them on the roster. But
yeah, they're going to keep a ton of defensive linemen for that rotation. And yeah, I'd rather keep the defensive back over linebacker.
let's get into the cornerback position. Obviously, Christian Benford, the starter there. John, here's another big training camp battle / storyline. Maxwell Hairston, the first round draft pick out of Kentucky. Is he going to be the starter opposite Christian Benford, or is it going to be the veteran Trey White, or possibly even Dean Jackson? Who do you think starts opposite of Christian Benford to start training camp, or as training camp goes on?
It has to be Hairston, unless he really fucks up like Kyrie Elam.
But even then, you still got
It's good because they took a defensive back later on, right? Just like they did with Bedford. I think it's Harrison. I think it's gonna be Bedford and Harrison, Johnson the nickel, Dane Jackson and Tre'Davious White are gonna be the primary backups at corner. But I like Dorian Strong. I like Jamarcus Ingram. I think they're both gonna make the roster, as well as Cam Lewis. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, but I think it's gonna be Bedford and Harrison.
John, how surprised would you be, though, if Trey White started opposite of Christian Benford like the first day of training camp? Couldn't you see that possibly happening? And then after like 2 or 3 days, they give it to Max Harrison, just as like a, earn your place rookie, or like because they have familiarity with Trey White. He's healthy again.
I agree, 100%. McDermott kind of has a history of like easing rookies in, like not starting them right away. I think the only rookie starter that I see is gonna be Maxwell Harrison. I think guys like Landon Jackson, T.J. Sanders, and even Jordan Hancock are gonna see a lot of playing time, but they're not starters right away until they earn it. Harrison, I think, is like kind of penciled in. I think he's gonna be the starter. If he's training camp, he doesn't start right away, whatever. But I think game 1, Maxwell Harrison's starting.
Oh yeah, I agree. Game 1. I'm just wondering if I think he should be starting opposite of Christian Bedford to start camp. But I could see Sean McDermott. Maybe that's even a good, fun, hard knock storyline. Is Max Harrison playing well enough to take over that CB2 position, the starting cornerback position? So it'll be interesting if they go that route. I feel like he should be. And from what I read from mandatory minicamp, from different reports, I mean, Trey White has definitely aged, right? Like, there's no confusing Trey White as far as he's still in his prime, or maybe he's close to his prime.
He had already lost a step after his injuries with Buffalo, and it's unfortunate. It really sucks that he got hurt. I remember the play the second time around, for both times around. It's heartbreaking. But he still got the smarts, and I think physically he's enough to be on a team. I just don't think he's a starter anymore.
Yeah, I know. The more we talk about it, he actually got better. So after the Bills, after he was injured, he went to the Rams, eventually got cut by them, got picked up by the Ravens. The Ravens picked him up. He played with them last year. He started to get better by the end of the season. Like, he did. He started to improve. And maybe that was just him finally getting over the Achilles. From the reports I read, he's just not the same guy. So if you're going into the season thinking like, hey, maybe we have 3 really good starting corners, I just think that's thinking too much into it. Now, he might have a better season this year than he did with the Ravens, because this is the system that he's known the best of all those defensive systems, because it's been the same one. Like, it hasn't really changed completely since he left just a couple of years ago. I think he's going to be a big, huge veteran presence, and I think he might get playing time depending on injuries ahead of him. And he's not the worst backup to have, for sure. Like, I mean, there's lots of worse backups to have, but I'd rather keep him on the sidelines unless we need him, as opposed to rely on him to be a CB2 or CB, whoever.
Yeah,
Unless
if Benford or Harrison get hurt, it's gonna be tough. Unless like one of these random rookies, other rookies like Strong or maybe Ingram, like come on Strong, it's gonna be not good. Next year they're gonna be looking at corners who may be one of their top needs, even for depth. Even if they still have Benford and Harrison and they're looking good. Dane Jackson, like he's not a long-term solution, and same thing with White. He's older, so they're still gonna be looking at that position next year, I think.
Agreed, 100%. And I like Jamarcus Ingram and Dane Jackson. I mean, he is what he is. He's like a halfway decent starter. I think for depth, I love him being like the 4th or 5th cornerback. I think that's great depth. I just don't want him to start unless he has to. I think we're in trouble if he's starting, as opposed to getting some snaps here or there. But if he's starting, I think we're in trouble. John, Dorian's, go ahead. I know you're going to talk about that.
No, I was going to ask how old Taron Johnson was because, if we're looking at their starters, Benford, Harrison, Johnson, and we're already worried about the depth. Benford's young enough. Harrison, we're banking on, but Taron Johnson is probably getting older now, right? Is he like probably 30 in his early 30s, right?
So he's going to be 29 by the time the season starts.
I'm so off on these ages.
John, how old am I? 26? You're right.
I would say, yeah, at least, right? 26.
Thanks, man. Even though we graduated the same year, the same high school.
Whatsoever.
Apparently you don't. You're like, how old is Jim Kelly? 41? I think so.
I feel like I'm 16.
You look great, buddy. You look great. So one guy, I want to talk about Dorian Strong a little bit later with another positional group, but he is one of the few depth corners we'll have after this. Stop it. Don't get ahead of me.
He can play both.
Don't get ahead of me. But yeah, I see him. But I mean, right now, the only depth option they'll have beyond this season at corner. So it'll be interesting to see. I'll be watching him. I won't expect a ton, but I'll be watching him. So John, nickel corner, you mentioned already, Taron Johnson, really good guy. You love Cam Lewis as a backup, a guy who can play both corner and safety, right? So nickel corner and safety. I mean, what's not to like there?
Love it.
I honestly, I think I know I mentioned this after the Bills-Chiefs game in the AFC Championship game, but I would have taken Cam Lewis, Jamarcus Ingram, almost any cornerback the Bills had on the roster that was active that day over Elam.
We got a draft pick for him, so that was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Dallas. Tyler Dallas, by the way.
Yeah, I think the fact that we could get anything for him without having to pay someone to take him was pretty impressive. So you're right. It ended up being a draft pick, but that game, I didn't take anyone, including Cam Lewis, and I think Cam Lewis could have done a better job. Part of me thinks that you or I could have done a better job if we didn't fall down. So nickel cornerback, I
probably would have fallen down.
I have Daquan Hardy over here. I know he's more of a nickel corner than an outdoor. He's an outdoor corner. He likes to play outdoors, an outside corner. So
yeah,
that's where I have him right now. So now that leaves us to the safety position, John.
Done.
We are bringing back almost the same top 3 safeties from last season. Taylor Rapp, Cole Bishop, Damar Hamlin. Does Damar Hamlin keep his starting job? Does Taylor Rapp keep his starting job? Does Cole Bishop become a starter? Does Jordan Hancock, the 5th-round pick out of Ohio State, does he make a run for it? John, what the hell happens to the safety group in training camp, and what will you be watching for?
So here's what I think.
Derek Forrest.
Oh, yeah, of course. And, yeah. So you've been talking about these sleeper picks at every position level. My sleeper pick is going to be Cole Bishop. Last year, training camp, he hurt his shoulder. It really set him back. He didn't get enough playing time as a result. I think this is the year to watch Cole Bishop. He's going to start with Taylor Rapp. I do like Jordan Hancock a lot. I think he has some versatility. He can play a couple different positions, I think. Not a huge Hamlin fan at safety. I think he's too slow. I think he brings a little bit to special teams. But I think my sleeper pick is going to be Cole Bishop, and really hoping because safety is not one of their stronger positions either.
No, it is not. John, do you think Cole Bishop starts at the starting safety spot, or do they give it to Damar Hamlin out of respect? Or how does that start from day one? Who gets first-team reps?
I don't know about as we start in training camp, but I could see Cole Bishop winning it by week 1.
I could see it. Oh, yeah. Agreed. If he doesn't start, maybe they, do the veteran thing, just give Damar Hamlin the first day. But yeah, agreed. Within the first weekend, I think Cole Bishop is starting opposite Taylor Rapp. John, you know what's interesting out of this group between Taylor Rapp, Cole Bishop, Damar Hamlin, Jordan Hancock, Derek Forrest, the free agent? None of these guys really appear to be that true free safety sort of role, ball hawking safety. And and you and I know this because we've talked about it ad nauseum in the offseason. Whenever we talk about the biggest needs, it's like, okay, well, let's talk about safety. Well, what kind of safety would you ideally have on your roster? Like, no matter what, you want a good athletic player, right? Like, no matter what he is. But if I had to choose, I wanted a ball hawking safety. And really, the Bills had, of these four players, Taylor Rapp, Cole Bishop, Damar Hamlin, Jordan Hancock, Derek Forrest, for the most part, they're all strong safeties. The Bills have like five strong safeties there, and there's guys that could potentially be a free safety, or at least be in that role, like Cole Bishop. Cole Bishop could potentially be that, but he was never asked to be that in Utah. And when he was asked to do that in short runs last season, everyone remembers the Houston Texans game where he got beat over the top. And what was it? Nico Collins just walked in for a touchdown. I forget. I can't remember who it was. I don't think it was Nico Collins. It was someone else. But yeah, it was. The Bills have a lot of strong safeties on this roster, and that might not be the worst thing in the world. I think Cole Bishop is the long-term starting safety for the Buffalo Bills. I think this could probably be Taylor Rapp and Damar Hamlin's last season with the Buffalo Bills. So then you look forward, and the reason why I bring this up is because I think Dorian Strong, the rookie this year out of Virginia Tech, or Virginia, I can't remember where he came out of, but anyway, he was a ball hawking cornerback, and he was just kind of long and lean. And when I think about the Buffalo Bills long term solutions, now this is how my mind thinks, like, does this guy fit a square peg in a square hole now, or is he a circular hole or circular peg in a circular hole for the future? And I think Dorian Strong could potentially be the starting free safety opposite of Cole Bishop in the long run. But we just mentioned how cornerback doesn't have a ton of depth after this season. Same thing could be said about safety besides Jordan Hancock. So that's one of my sleep. It's not really a sleeper. It's like a guy that, it's a thought I have that I have to share with Bills Mafia because they might see it too as time goes on. I want to be like, hey, I called it. I called it. So, John, any
I
thoughts
like
on that?
I like it a lot. I like both Hancock and Strong because they can play different positions, and either one of them could end up filling starting free safety role. Like you never know, or even like when Turner Johnson is gone, like a nickel role or anything like that. I think they're both really good. I'm happy with those picks. So no, that sounds good.
Jordan Hancock is a guy I didn't mention specifically, but it was really interesting. I was listening to Eric Wood's podcast, and he had Brandon Bean on, and they did an exercise before the draft where they said if if the board falls a certain way and so is available in like day 3. I mean, Brandon Bean's like, give me 2 to 3 guys. He said this to each scout. Give me 2 to 3 guys that you would want us to pick based on what you've seen, and you just have a feeling about this guy. And the player that came up the most to the scouts in the room as a whole was Jordan Hancock, because he doesn't have blazing athletic abilities by any means. They were like, their logic was, when you watch him on tape, he's just a football player.
Eye
Like,
test.
through and
Yeah.
through. The eye test, exactly. So I haven't been as high talking about him or thinking about him, but ever since that interview, I've been more and more intrigued with Jordan Hancock, and I think that this guy could potentially be a long-term solution at safety or nickel corner, or somewhere along this team, because I mean that's high praise, for people saying that, the fact that he was available and he played on such a high-level team. Lots to like there. I don't love the group at safety. I think it's going to be maybe better than last season, but I think that the long-term solutions there's options there, which I'm excited about because I think there could be upside.
I agree. I think we're banking on Cole Bishop to taking that step. But yeah, they got guys who can play a position also. So yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. They obviously invested a lot on defense this year because like the offense is largely intact. The only difference is on offense, as far as starters go, is one of the receivers is gonna be a different starter. Everything else is the same.
Yeah, and we hit on that last episode. So if you guys haven't heard the offensive breakdown for each position, please go check that out. But yeah, you're right. John, we mentioned sleepers. Are there any other sleepers that you have for the Buffalo Bills? I know you already mentioned one, but before I mention another one, I just want to give you a chance to get one out if you had one.
All right, I guess I will mention one. We were texting earlier, like, oh, I have two, one on offense, one on defense. All right, so if I had to pick an offensive one, last year they had Alec Anderson running a lot of extra offensive lineman stuff. I think this Jackson Hawes pick for tight end here, I think he's an excellent blocker, and I think they might try to find a way to work him in a little bit more. It's going to be obviously a unsung, unknown thing that because he's not going to be catching passes or anything, but I think he might work out well as a blocker for them this year.
I like that one. I like that one a lot. I think that John, I think there's a potential for like 10 to 15 targets for Jackson Hawes this season. Out of the blue. Imagine, I mean, ever since the Bills drafted him, you and I have been talking about this, but the Bills run 6 offensive linemen, the most of any team in the NFL. And what if they could run Jackson Hawes? And what if he could actually catch a pass in that position? I think this opens up a lot for the Buffalo Bills. Now, I agree with you. I love the prospect of Jackson Hawes. It does potentially make Anderson expendable if you needed to keep a guy like Ryan Vandemark, maybe, or someone like that. Potentially, if everything goes well.
I'm not saying Alec Anderson's expendable, but like they don't have to like every single play be like, oh, number 60 or whatever his number is. Oh, he's eligible. No, I think they brought him in to be another blocker, and I think he's really good at it. I'm a little bit worried about. So we're talking about like sleepers and stuff. I'm worried. I think I've mentioned this on other podcasts, but I'm worried about Kincaid. I don't think he's a complete tight end necessarily, and because I don't think they should run as much 12 personnel to tight ends. So if they're not going to run two tight ends, their primary tight end probably should be Knox, even though Kincaid might be a little bit better as a pass catcher, but Knox can do both better. I think Kincaid might end up being a bust for the Bills.
So, John, this actually has 100% to do with my last sleeper pick, which I have as Dalton Kincaid. I think you're like, I'm really worried.
I disagree with you.
You're like, I'm really worried he's a bust. And I'm like, oh, he's not gonna like what I just. he's gonna crap all over what I have to say. But I have this feeling, and I can't explain it any more than that. But they used Dalton Kincaid a lot in the season before his injury, like much more than. I want to say it was like 60-40 or 65-35 over Dawson Knox until his injury, and then it evened out after that. And it was a significant knee injury. It wasn't a small injury. And he dealt with it a lot. He had that big drop in the end of the game in the Kansas City Chiefs game, which you can't blame the injury on completely because he didn't catch it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough catcher.
And I think a lot of people do, and I did for a moment too. Not going to lie.
There's a lot of other things that went wrong. It wasn't it for me, but
a ton of other things. But all these things going into it, like his first round draft grade, the fact that they've wanted to put him in to the game
traded up for him.
Exactly. And I think he's going to be like uber motivated more than he's ever been this season to make a jump. And I think they want him to. He just has to get there. He just has to be healthy, and then B, like just put everything together, because tight end is one of those roles that takes multiple years to really figure out. In years past, he used to be wide receiver, right? They used to say the third year for wide receiver. Well, tight ends may not break out until like their fourth or fifth years at times, if they break out at all. I think I wrote this on X Twitter today, that I have this feeling that Dalton Kincaid's going to have a breakout season like Spencer Brown did in his third season. Remember Spencer Brown? Everyone thought that he was a bust potentially, like he could be cut after his third season, but Aaron Kromer came in and he ended up getting an extension, being one of the best right tackles in the NFL a year later after that.
So who's coming in for Kincaid?
Hey, Spencer Brown didn't have the draft acumen that Dalton Kincaid did, so
I hope I'm wrong. I'm just not feeling it for Kincaid.
Dude, he doesn't have to be.
I loved the pick at the time. Like, you probably heard me gush over it. Like, oh, they traded up over the Cowboys to get him, blah, blah, blah. but I'm not feeling it based on what I've seen so far. And like I was worrying about Knox. The first 2-3 years, like, stone hands Knox, and then finally he, did better as pass catcher. They probably don't use him as enough as a pass catcher. He's always been a good blocker, but
John, what season would you say he took that jump from being, I don't know if he's that good, to like, okay, this guy's pretty good. This guy's, I think, a starting.
I don't remember.
I think with him, it was between the third and fourth season. I want to say it was his
That
last.
sounds right.
This is last season. He finally started to catch him and stop dropping him. So what I'll say to that, John, is Dalton Kincaid doesn't have to be a full tight end. He doesn't have to be the best pass blocking tight end, but I think he can be a really good pass catching tight end. I think that they just, especially with a new coordinator last year, Joe Brady, getting his feet under him. I think another year into the system, I think he'll have plans for Dalton Kincaid, and I think we'll know pretty soon whether Dalton Kincaid is going to take that next step. For me, for some reason, I just get that feeling that he's going to get to that next level.
I think the hard part for me is the usage. So if they're gonna run 12 personnel, fine, he's got that opportunity, but I don't think that they're gonna do that as much. I think they're gonna run more 11 and have Shakir's their best receiver, so he's a slot receiver. So they're gonna run a lot more 2 outside and 1 slot in a tight end, not 2 tight end. And if they're gonna pick one of the 2 tight ends, Knox is a better overall tight end. So I think it's a usage thing for me, why Kincaid might end up fading out for the Bills. And then that leads me to, you're talking about Kincaid. I'm thinking about Coleman, another higher draft pick, top of the second round. I think Coleman could take the next step this year with either whoever ends up winning the other, Palmer versus Elijah Moore. I think Coleman could take a step. He had an injury last year that he was good, really good for the first 4-6 weeks, and then he got hurt, and then I think he kind of struggled to return from that. So I'm excited about that.
I think if he's healthy, I think I think that's the big difference. Is I think he was on track to have a good season, not a great season, a good season, but
right as a rookie.
Exactly, John. How many times, percentage of plays on the offense, do you think the Bills played 2 tight ends
last year? So we should compare, like when Brady took over versus when they drafted Kincaid, because I don't think Brady was the guy when they drafted Kincaid, right? It was
No, it wasn't Brady.
Right. So we need that comparison. Like, how much has the usage increased or decreased?
Let's see. Brady took over technically in 2024 last year, even though it was part of 2023. Do you want to see? You want me to give you what 2023 was?
Sure.
So in 2023, they played 2 tight end personnel. They were 19th in the NFL with 17.8%.
And that was like Brady was there for maybe half the
year? Bottom half. Yeah, I mean, about half the year. That's about right. So 17.8%, bottom half of the league. Guess where they were in 2024? Higher or lower? What do you think?
Lower? Same?
The Buffalo Bills finished 28th in the NFL, even lower, less. So I don't think that that's something that they really like to do.
No, I think that was the previous guy's thing, and they drafted Kincaid thinking they were going to run more 12 personnel, and then he got fired, and then they're like, oh, let's not do that anymore. And who's the better tight end, Knox or Kincaid? I think it's Knox as an overall tight end. Is not a fantasy football player, but like is a real NFL tight end, Knox is better.
Yeah. I mean, all around, especially after the injury. After the injury, I don't think it was any question. But a healthy. Of course, that's saying a lot for the Buffalo Bills this year. At any year, a healthy so and so means that they can have a good chance to start or, play a significant amount of snaps. So we're in the same spot. By the way, I added that meme to our Instagram page, our Twitter page. I don't know if I did Twitter, but Facebook. If you're not following us, by the way, at CTW Pod, Circling the Wagons Pod. I did that, the CEO meme that's going around. Him and the head of HR. Did you see that one? The Coldplay concert one?
Yeah.
where the guy's
Oh,
holding.
there's memes of that. You see the ones with like the Chiefs and the refs.
Oh
Like,
yeah, refs. Steelers in 9-8. Yeah, there's been some good ones. I had one where it was like the Buffalo Bills, and it's like holding like key injuries to key players, during or into the postseason, because it always seems to happen. Those always seem to get injured.
there's like 1 year in the last 8 years where it didn't happen.
I know. What was it?
Like,
The 2022 season, the Chiefs game, the 13 seconds.
I think it was the one season that they were healthy.
That should be like the Voldemort of Buffalo Bills fans. The season that shall not be named, the 2022 season. Could have had it all. We'll see. So, John, I have some real quick top training camp storylines that I want you to let me know which ones you think are a storyline you'll be watching or which ones you don't think will be. Okay, you ready?
Ready.
And some of these we've mentioned either in this episode or the last episode. So, will Max Hairston win the CB2 role or will it be Trey White? That's one of the top storylines I have. Will Max Hairston win the starting cornerback role or will it be Trey White?
Yeah, Maxwell Harrison will win.
Who will be the starting safety opposite Taylor Rapp? Will it be Cole Bishop or DeMar Hamlin?
Cole Bishop.
Can Dalton Kincaid take the leap in year 3?
No. I think it's just a usage thing. I think that they're not going to play 12 personnel as much, and Knox is better overall tight end. So I don't think the opportunity will be there for Kincaid to take the leap.
John, if you don't think it happens this season, do you think it could happen in year 4?
I don't. I wouldn't write him off. I would not write him off completely. No, I think he's not going to take some giant leap that people are hoping for.
Yeah. I think it becomes a top 15 tight end, receiving wise, at the end of the season, if he stays healthy. Is Trubisky's quarterback 2 position in doubt? Could he
Yes,
lose
Mike White. Mike White. Let's go, Mike White.
It almost feels like at this point, like anything different could be better, right? Because Trubisky hasn't gotten better.
If God forbid Josh Allen got hurt, it doesn't matter. They're fucked.
I almost want a guy that just either balls to the wall, either give me an A or give me an F. I want you to throw Hail Marys and light up the league or fail Nathan Peterman miserably so that we get a better draft pick.
I like the grit of Mike White as a backup quarterback.
Every answer you've given for all these questions heading into training camp, I agree with. Who will be the wide receiver 2 for the Buffalo Bills? Will it be Joshua Palmer? Will it be Elijah Moore?
Like number 2 in like receiving yards / receptions?
Yes,
or...
receiving. Yeah, receiving yards.
That's tough. Well, I'm going to assume Shakir's going to be number 1.
Correct.
I say Coleman.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even put Dalton.
Anthony Coleman. They do use the running back a lot, though, in pass catching also. But I think Coleman takes a step. I'm going to, assuming he's healthy, I'm going to say Coleman.
Yeah, I had an interesting stat for that from Bill's Muse on Twitter. If you haven't followed them, they're a really good follow. Keon Coleman averaged 19.2 yards per reception as a rookie, the highest by a Bills rookie with 25-plus catches in at least the last 40 years. So there's a lot to like about Keon Coleman. So, yeah, I like that one a lot, John. I think Keon Coleman has the best chance to be wide receiver 2. And then the last one is who will step up for some added pass rush with the loss of Von Miller? Who will step up? It could be a defensive end. It could be a defensive tackle. Who steps up in that role? Is it Joey Bosa? Is it A.J. Epinesa? Is it Landon Jackson? Is it Jevon Solomon? Is it Michael Hoyt? Is it T.J. Sanders as a rookie defensive tackle? Does he get some pressure? I mean, that's why they drafted him. He had one of the best pass rush win rates of all defensive tackles in FBS, and he played in the SEC.
Joey Bosa.
Ah, man, I'm just
It's
so low.
It's their best chance, and he's going to be penciled into that spot. So, okay, injury concerns. Well, we already know Landon Jackson is injury concerns. He's on PUP. Who's the next guy? Epinesa? Michael Hoyt's hurt or not hurt, but suspended for the 6 weeks.
It's really either Joey Bosa.
Yeah, it's going to be Bosa.
It's either Joey Bosa or T.J. Sanders. Not talking starters like Greg Rousseau obviously doesn't count. Ed Oliver doesn't count. Daquan Jones for the most part doesn't count.
I'm going to say Bosa's got the best shot at it.
What do you think about this? This is a regular season storyline, but does Ed Oliver take a step up in his game this season like he did the season before last? Like 2023 was a really good season for Ed Oliver. 2024, not so much. Not bad, but not as good as 2023. Does he take a a step up to become 2023 Ed Oliver this season? Or does he play more like 2024 Ed Oliver?
I honestly see it going in. Let's be optimistic. Yeah, he's gonna be great.
Could you see like Deion Walker comes in and then all of a sudden the Bills or another team has to account for a 360-pound defensive tackle and they just take their eye off Ed Oliver and he starts knifing through the backfield to get to the quarterback or whatever, right? Like,
I see Dan Walker is a bit of a project, so I don't think it's gonna happen right away.
you want to know why I'm high on him? I don't have him as sleeper quality because I think that he's still a year away from making a contribution. Yet, like you said, depth at this point, but depth with upside because they were saying that if his career had ended after 2020 or before 2024 happened, when he had all the back injury issues, he would have led all defensive tackles in pass rush win rate. Like he's that good when he's healthy.
Yeah.
So a guy that was a 4th-round pick could have easily been a 1st-round pick if he didn't play a year injured. Now it's just a matter of, is he healthy enough this season to make an impact? When the Bills picked him, I was kind of like, oh, you're going back to the well. This guy's a 1 technique, but no, he's really truly a 3 technique, but he's just a bigger body 3 technique, and he could potentially also play 1 technique.
I guess that goes back to like what I was saying before. They're willing to take risks on guys who have had an injury, like when they brought in Poyer or some of these other guys, and they end up working out. So, yeah, he could maybe right away make a big impact. You never know.
Yeah, a lot of exciting stuff, though. I can't believe training camp's here. It stinks I'm going camping this weekend, and I'm going into a spot where there's almost no cell phone activity. It's for the family. It's a good time. I'll be checking my phone as often as I can to see if there's any updates, hopefully good updates or any, training camp battles, stuff like that. We'll be here to talk about it. Hopefully this Sunday, John, go over what's happened in the first weekend, half week of training camp and go over all the big training camp battles, basically everything we discussed in the last 2 episodes and kind of summing it up and have some roster battles to watch and training camp storylines to go on. The first episode of HBO's Hard Knocks for the Buffalo Bills comes out August 5th. So that's in a couple of weeks. So that's exciting. When my wife and the kids are asleep, we'll just bro out, watch it together over.
Never seen a Hard Knocks episode before.
It's worth seeing the first one as a Bills fan, as a Buffalo Bills, right? So
yeah.
Me either. Did I ever tell you I had it growing up? Like we had it. It wasn't illegally. They just didn't turn it off on the telephone pole or whatever. Like we got free HBO for like 10 years. It was crazy. So like I've actually seen more movies than I should have seen because of it. But
nice.
Yeah, it's the only time I really ever had it. So eventually they figured it out. They had to fix something else. They're like, oh, these guys are getting free HBO. Click. Like, oh man. Speaking of houses, did I tell you the story about how I met the guy who designed Josh Allen's and Deion Dawkins' house?
No, I don't think you have. Please tell.
I would love to tell this story. So I did this really cool thing with my dad. My dad's a Vietnam vet, and we did the honor flight mission, which is one of those things where you go to Washington, D.C. for a day and a half and you see all the memorials and you go through all the different. It's a really cool thing. It's a fun day. It's a good thing for veterans to do in general. So it was cool to do it with my dad. And just randomly, he was introducing me to someone he knew within like the VFW chapter or the Vietnam Veterans chapter around here. Everyone that goes on that's a veteran has a guardian. So obviously I was my father's guardian, but there would be people that like would be their nieces or nephews or, sons or daughters or whatever. And I met a guy through my father, and his guardian was the architect for Josh Allen and Deion Dawkins' house in Buffalo, which was super cool. And I'm like, that's amazing. I talked to architects. I was like, this is the most interesting conversation I've ever had with an architect. He couldn't really tell me about the design of the house or exactly where it was, of course. But I said, I got to ask about Josh Allen. He's like, I know what you're going to ask. He's like, the answer is yes. He's just as cool in real life as you think he'd be, based on what you know about him. Super nice guy, super down to earth. And this is like building a house, right? This is one of those areas in life where I feel like between this and brides at a wedding, you can determine how much of a jerk or how specific you want to be. Not much of a jerk, but be anal as much as you want because it's your house being built. John, you've had houses built before. Like
the more anal you are, the more it costs. So there's some give on that. So like if you're Josh Allen, you can afford to be.
Yeah. So when you were building houses before, you'd be like, well, I want to be anal about this, but I can't afford to be anal.
I really couldn't give a shit, really.
So
whenever it comes.
You're like, now we're just looking at money. Just, I don't care. Just put like, put cardboard on the ground. I don't care. We just need to make it affordable.
I mean, we need to have a microwave. Let's take it out.
What do you mean toilets? Just put a hole in the ground. It'll all find its way out. Yeah, it was just like, yeah, he's like both those guys. Just like you think. They're as cool and as real as you suspect they'd be based on interviews and stuff like that. So like that's cool to know from someone who's seen it firsthand because you and I as Bills fans, Bills Mafia, you just think that Josh Allen's pretty likable, but in reality, we don't know these guys at all.
Yeah.
That could be a persona.
We've never interacted with him.
Never interacted with them, but to hear somebody that interacted with him, and he could have easily been like, "Yeah, he was a jerk." He didn't say that. Just
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of get an idea, like, because a lot of people do interact with him, and a lot of these people are sports reporters or beat reporters and this and that. And I think you kind of get the sense over the years where if they're good guys, they'll say it, and if they're not, they just won't say anything.
Yeah. So if you guys are interested, like last episode was the first episode we recorded since the draft, which did really well. I mean, we're already at regular season numbers, which is downloads, listens, views, watches. So appreciate all you guys listening, subscribing, watching either live on YouTube, Facebook, X, Twitter, wherever else. Thank you guys for being a part of this. Hopefully we can get you guys in more often as the training camp goes along with the bigger storylines and the battles that are going into place. Obviously everything else going around the league. So John, any last thoughts before we end this one?
Go Bills.
Yeah. And for me, Nate, go Bills. Thank you guys all for listening, subscribing, paying attention, all that fun stuff. And we will talk to you guys all soon. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you guys for being a part of it. Go Bills.
Thank you for listening to the Circling the Wagons podcast. Download and subscribe to us in your favorite podcast service. Email us at ctwpod@gmail.com. That's Charlie Tango Whiskey Pod@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at CTWPod. And most importantly, go Bills!
Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills, Nate.
If the whole show is called Circling the Wagons, say no more. I love it.